Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is a 2005 third-person stealth game developed by Ubisoft Montreal. Chaos Theory was the third and final entry of the original trilogy, considered by most people to be the peak of the series and one of the best stealth games ever made. And I agree with both assessments. Chaos Theory is an incredible game that not only refined the series' formula, it also gives many modern stealth games a run for their money. A few hitches notwithstanding, I'd say Chaos Theory is as close to perfect as a game could get as far as the gameplay is concerned. Then there's the genius soundtrack composed by the great Amon Tobin, the story stone, which is serious but not too serious, the writing, the characters. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. I had a ton of fun with Chaos Theory and I'm so excited to cover it today. Now, you might be wondering, where's Pandora Tomorrow, Mark? Why jump straight into Chaos Theory if you haven't played Pandora Tomorrow, Mark? Why fuck with the program, Mark? Well, first of all, it's none of your fucking business. No, seriously. As you may know, Ubisoft have gone out of their way to make Pandora Tomorrow as inaccessible as possible. It's not available on digital platforms, on PC at least, and I failed to make my copy of Pandora Tomorrow run on my system. Patching Pandora Tomorrow is a high-stakes adventure in itself, one which I'll probably resume sometime in the future. A few notes before we start. Chaos Theory is pretty damn old as well and requires its own set of fan fixes to look and run good on modern machines. I'm not gonna do a step-by-step tutorial in this video, so make sure to check out the description for links and stuff. It's worth mentioning that shadows break past a certain resolution threshold, which makes the game effectively unplayable on account of, you know, shadows being an integral part of the gameplay, so keep an eye out for that. Also, if you notice in-game physics pissing and shitting themselves, it's most likely due to the high frame rate, so make sure to cap it at 60. And that's pretty much it. As far as making all games run is concerned, Chaos Theory is pretty low maintenance. Unlike KOTOR, but we'll get to that soon. Before we jump into the video, I have a Twitter with lots of tweets and a Patreon where you can support the channel with real-life money. Let's go!
That's the right dose.
So Chaos Theory picks up where Pandora Tomorrow left off. The year is 2007 and the world is on the brink of yet another geopolitical disaster. The catalyst of this installment's geopolitical clusterfuck is Japan's formation of a so-called Information Self-Defense Force, henceforth known as the ISDF. A military intelligence unit specialized in proactive cyber warfare operations, or something like that, trust me, it doesn't matter. Anyways, China, North Korea and South Korea are upset by this development as they consider this to be a violation of Article 9 of Japan's post-World War II constitution, which outlaws war as a means to settle international disputes involving the state. Thinking that the ISDF is responsible for a series of off-the-books information warfare attacks against their countries, the trifecta establishes a blockade in the Yellow Sea against Japanese shipping, effectively isolating the country and crippling its economy. As Japan is a close ally of the United States and the third echelon, the United States Navy dispatches a warship to the Yellow Sea, hoping that everyone would just chill out. That's the macro perspective of this crisis. Meanwhile, Mr. Sam Splinter Cell Chaos Theory Fisher is dispatched to a lighthouse in Peru to locate and rescue an American computer programmer who had been kidnapped by a Peruvian separatist faction led by a Salvadorian revolutionary called Lacerda. Wow, what a tongue twister. The programmer, Morgenhold, was close to deciphering the so-called mass kernels, the highly advanced algorithms that Georgian dictator Nicolae used to invade Azerbaijan in the first game. Sam's orders are to recover these algorithms and prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. Unfortunately, Sam fails to prevent Morgenhold's death and the release of the mass kernels, which nefarious forces then use to black out Japan and the US East Coast. Admiral Otomo of the ISDF informs the third echelon that North Korea and China are actually responsible for the blackout, a theory ludicrous enough for the third echelon to consider that maybe there's more to this crisis than meets the eye. So, in other words, this week's head scratcher is something like this. Who used the mass kernels to black out Japan and the United States, and more crucially, was Japan's sudden militaristic shift sanctioned by the state or the result of shadowy forces manipulating the government? Was Japan's formation of a cyber military intelligence unit in a politically sensitive region justified? Am I too stupid to follow and comprehend the intricacies of Tom Clancy's political geopolitical thrillers? As always, it's up to Sam to untangle this mess over the course of one fateful month in the summer of 2007. Quietly, of course, because as we all know, Sam doesn't officially exist and the smallest fuck-up could plunge the world into a global war. Now, as convoluted and political as the plot may seem, the game doesn't take itself too seriously. Tonally wise, Chaos Theory strikes a perfect balance between serious and lighthearted. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it's one of the funnier spy thrillers out there, and that's thanks to its cast of characters. Sam, Lambert, Grimsdor and Redding had been working together for several years as of Chaos Theory's events. And one of the best parts of the original trilogy is seeing them growing closer to each other, one global political conspiracy at a time. Their banter, their inside jokes, all hinting to a strong sense of camaraderie that has developed over years of conducting and executing sensitive operations under a top-secret intelligence agency that doesn't officially exist, and of which even the President of the United States is barely aware of. One fuck-up and it's over for them. Not to romanticize toxic work environments, but you can't deny that shitty jobs can result in employees forming lifelong bonds with each other. That's, of course, not because of the job, but despite it. I am speaking from experience. Years ago, I had a shitty job that absolutely destroyed my mental health. I am still to this day dealing with the psychological aftermath. Now, I'm not saying my situation was comparable to Sam's and his colleagues. After all, my former employer never dropped me in North Korean military bases to sabotage nuclear missile launchers or whatever, but it was the kind of place where the blame always fell on the employee and where people were expendable. However, I met tons of wonderful people through that job, some of whom have become close friends. What started as a coping/survival mechanism, bonding over insane workloads, shitty abusive management and so on, eventually blossomed into a fully fledged friendship. Some of them will be watching this video, so, you know, thanks for making a shitty job bearable. You can see the same thing with Chaos Theory's characters. They not only bond over their stressful work, but they play off of each other so well. Sam Fisher, for example, is a walking paradox. As deadly as he is goofy. One moment he's interrogating Peruvian separatists, and in the next he's terrorizing Grimsdor, the field ops technician, with the deadliest of dad jokes, who in turn teases him over his age. Irving Lambert, as third echelon director, is under immense pressure for these operations to go smoothly, but he still reserves some time to pull Sam's legs over his eccentricities. But you know what, let's listen to some snippets.
Sorry to interrupt, but
I see it.
power's coming back on.
I see it, Grim.
You got company. You might wanna...
I see it.
I just synced your OPSAT with intelligence on the bank that you and your team gathered back in '89.
The memories.
Yeah. Judging from your report, sounds like it was quite a vacation.
It was, actually. I spent most of the rest of that year sleeping in a ditch on the road between Baghdad and Kuwait.
Oh well, if it's any consolation, I had a bad year that year too.
What? You weren't working for the government during the Gulf War?
No? I was in 10th grade.
Oh, right. Yuck.
Good work, Sam. That shut down the magnetic locks on the windows. Hey, wait a minute. Power spike. The lobby. It looks like a laser grid just came online.
Lasers. Lasers are so...
90s?
I was going to say 70s. Can you please stop making me feel old?
Got bad news for you, Sam. You are old. Good work, Sam. Those are the abort codes.
I still need to bypass the override circuit from the missile control room.
Hurry. The missile is closing on the USS Ronald Reagan at top speed.
Hold on. Did you just tell me I need to win one for the Gipper?
Dude, what does that even mean?
Never mind. You're right, Grim. I am old.
Good job, Fisher. Now the whole mission will look like a robbery. They'll never know why we were here.
Lambert, now that I'm holding 50 million bucks, I think we need to talk about that raise again.
25 cents an hour and not a penny more.
Deal.
So yeah, you could say I relate to these characters and their dynamic on a personal level. They lend humanity to a setting that is otherwise very cold, for the lack of a better word. Sadly, Chaos Theory was the last Splinter Cell to feature this element of lightheartedness and spirit of camaraderie, as the series took a more gritty and serious turn with Double Agent. You'd think that there's not a whole lot to see given that the levels are literally shrouded in darkness, but there are tons of cool visual and environmental touches that reinforce the game game's cloak and dagger aesthetic. The first mission, Lighthouse, is a great example in this sense. Lighthouse is essentially a half-hour flex during which Chaos Fury's engine is pushed to its absolute limit. The drop point is on the seashore, so already the devs were like, look at the cool water effects we made. Then you'll find this conveniently positioned, fully functioning lamppost, whose purpose was obviously to showcase the intricate light and shadow work. This is followed by a shaky, crumbling bridge, an ominous shadow cast by a man and his torturers, and a tent with a cuttable portion meant to show off the cloth physics. The level culminates with the lighthouse itself and a demonstration of the new and improved weather effects, which look pretty freaking cool to this day. And this is just the first mission. The next level, Cargo Ship, is a textbook case on how to lend personality to a space that's, traditionally speaking, pretty bland looking. If you don't believe me, just take a stroll on the cargo ship's deck under the moonlight and tell me this doesn't wake the secret agent slumbering within you. Battery was also slated to be visually bland given that it takes place in a military base, but again, the light and shadow work elevated this location by giving it an air of mystique and intrigue. Same goes for this place, a mission set in the corporate offices of the PMC of the same name, which is a baffling thing to say considering I play video games to escape reality, not relive it, but you know, it is what it is. The implication being that I work in an office, not at a PMC, to be clear. The point I'm trying to make is that Chaos Fury boasts a lot of visual variety. It mixes and matches mundane settings that you'd normally associate with spy thrillers with novel locations. Speaking of which, I was particularly impressed by the garden on Hokkaido Island and the steam effects and bathhouse. Most missions have a physics or environmental gimmick that tie into the gameplay, but all in due time. Also, for an espionage game where the focus is put firmly on staying hidden in the shadows, it sure has a thing for beautiful vistas. Sound is one of those things that can make or break a stealth game because in this genre it plays a double mechanical and mood setting role. Thankfully, Chaos Fury's soundscape is as lush and rich as you would expect. Glass cracks under Sam's feet, there's a constant metallic thud as you're crawling through vents, wet surfaces emit a particular sound when Sam's walking on them, the usual beeps and boops and clanks of computers in office spaces. It's very immersive. And as I said before, sound also has a gameplay purpose, but we'll circle back to this in the appropriate section. Another reason why fans hold the original Splinter Cell games in such high regards is the soundtrack, with Chaos Fury's score being undoubtedly the peak of the trilogy. Now, for a bit of personal context, I've been on something of a trip-hop and instrumental hip-hop kick lately. I've been especially obsessed with Massive Attack's Mezzanine, Portishead's Dummy, Morchiba's Who Can You Trust, J Dilla's Donuts, The Alchemist's Israeli Salad, and Kenny Beats Louie, all great albums that you should listen to at least once if sample-heavy production is up your alley. There is a reason behind this name dropping, namely that Chaos Fury's score fit right into my obsession with sample-based production. The soundtrack was composed by Brazilian electronic music artist Eamon Tobin. Prior to working on Chaos Fury, Eamon Tobin had made a name for himself as an insanely creative and genre-bending producer. No Eamon Tobin album is like the other. For example, the 1996 Adventures in Foam, his only album released under the name Cujo, is regarded as a trip-hop classic. His sophomore effort, the 1997 Bricolage, also the first album released under the name Eamon Tobin, incorporates a heavier blend of jazz sounds and jungle rhythms. Composition-wise, it's very close to 90s intelligent drum and bass. His 1998 album Permutation incorporates even more jazzy sounds, but the album as a whole has a darker edge. It's one of the best nighttime records out there. The point I'm trying to make is that a jungle/trip-hop producer might seem like a weird choice to score a high-tech, globe-trotting espionage thriller video game. I don't know whose idea was to commission Eamon Tobin because boy, it's a match made in heaven. Interestingly, Chaos Fury marked the beginning of a major shift in Eamon Tobin's production. Like the large majority of producers, Eamon Tobin would collect samples from vinyl records, a practice known as crate digging in the hip-hop community. But from Chaos Fury onwards, he started recording his own samples. As such, for the recording of the soundtrack, he hired a live band, which included Mexican composer Nacho Mendez, Italian brothers and singers Massimo and Umberto Modugno, and Japanese flutist Eiji Miyake. I'd give everything to be a fly on the wall at that pitch meeting. So here's the thing, Mr. Ubisoft. Instead of doing my thing and sampling obscure vinyl records, I'm gonna hire a live band composed of struggling musicians from free continents to sample and absorb into the production. That'll cost about $69 million. Keep in mind this is Ubisoft we're talking about, but from a time when it was willing to take creative risks. No way they'd greenlight such an outlandish pitch these days. If you don't believe me, just look at Beyond Good and Evil, a game released just 2 years before Chaos Fury, which had a soundtrack that was just as eclectic. It featured an anti-authoritarian rap song with Bulgarian lyrics, like how? What's truly baffling is that Tobin's experimental production for Chaos Fury doesn't only work as a standalone album, it actually fits the mission's themes. Take Bank, a mission that has Sam break into a bank to recover intelligence from a vault and make it so that it looks like a regular heist by stealing $5 million. A reverse heist, if you will. So, how do you score a mission with this premise? Well, just cook a funky hip-hop beat with Latin instruments and an infectious vocal loop, and you're good to go. It's a very playful song that perfectly contrasts the high-stakes nature of Sam's mission. Or look at Battery, which has Sam infiltrating a North Korean military installation to literally prevent World War III from erupting. Sam's all alone in a top-secret facility in a rogue state. Failure means death not only for him, but potentially millions of people. How do you convey this theme through music? Well, that eerie vocal loop has been stuck in my head for the last fucking month. Also, I can picture a Earl Sweatshirt or Billy Woods spitting some fire raps over this theme. Maybe throw in a currency feature there for good measure. Fucking Conway the Machine, MF Doom, why not? Am I listing rappers just for the sake of it? Well, it's my channel, so I can do whatever the fuck I want. Anyways, I hope my needlessly long Amon Tobin related tangent was enough to convince you just how dope this soundtrack is. Let's move on to the gameplay.
This voracious detrivore is considered by many to be simply a snail without a shell.
Shit!
There's one thing you need to know about Chaos Fury before we dive into the gameplay. While the previous entries did a decent job tutorializing their various mechanics, Chaos Fury does not. Its tutorial is a dedicated menu filled with explainer videos of various degrees of depth. So if this is your first Splinter Cell game, don't go in blind, look up a guide or something. Otherwise you might miss out on loads of little mechanics that the game doesn't do a great job at explaining to players. So at its core, Chaos Fury is a third-person stealth game with an emphasis on subterfuge, outlandish displays of athletic prowess, intelligence gathering, and high-tech gadgetry. In short, spy fuckery. At the start of each mission, Sam can choose from one of 3 recommended equipment kits. There is Redding's kit, an assault kit, and a stealth kit. Redding's kit provides an equal balance between ammunition and non-lethal weaponry, while assault and stealth provide more kit-specific equipment at the expense of the other. Once you choose a kit, Sam is magically teleported to the drop zone and he's free to, Splinter Cell all over the place. Chaos Fury brought massive improvements to the series' core gameplay, with, I'd say, about 95% of its predecessor's issues addressed and refined. For starters, in addition to the light bar, the game provides an oral monitor that measures Sam's noise. It's easier than ever to control the level of noise you create because now you can just take a quick peek at the bar instead of guesstimating and relying on the enemy's selective hearing. Similar to previous titles, Sam's noise production is dependent amongst other things on his walking speed, which you can fine-tune by scrolling up to increase speed and down to decrease speed. Shooting light sources also creates noise, so you need to be mindful about it. Secondly, AI detection has been altered in that the body detection system has been completely removed. Basically, when Sam left an area, the game would scan it for bodies left in the open. Once the game detected bodies in well-lit spots, it would add one alarm point, with 3 points leading to a mission over screen. This system was stupid and tedious because it just led to me shooting every light source I saw because I couldn't trust the game's definition of darkness. But in Chaos Fury, bodies need to be discovered by security cameras or enemies to trigger the alarm. So just feel free to leave bodies lying out in the open, it's fine. The game even pokes fun at this in a very tongue-in-cheek meta moment.
Fisher, we just pulled up Celestinia's last dry dock report for the Maria Narcissa. They have a newly installed central alarm system.
Don't tell me. 3 alarms and the mission is over?
Of course not. This is no video game, Fisher. But you don't want the whole place alerted to your presence. Keep it under control.
Thirdly, it no longer matters what direction Sam attacks from when using melee, or if the enemy is aware of his presence. This is a huge quality of life improvement as you're no longer required to align Sam's model perfectly to the back or the side of the enemies to perform melee moves. It's not perfect by any means. The game still has a problem with enemies that are sitting and that they have to sort of stand up before Sam grabs them, but you know, it's the price of doing business, I guess. So those are the 3 biggest issues that Chaos Fury solves right from the get-go. The body detection mechanic is gone, melee takedowns have been perfected, and Sam has more control over the sound he makes than ever. And believe it or not, it's all uphill from here. So you may remember my complaining about the original's lack of replay value. It was an aggressively linear experience. Once you finished the original, there was no real reason to revisit it. In contrast, Chaos Fury's design is more open, verging on sandboxy. While the main objectives are set, you're free to experiment with ways to accomplish them, both stealthily and, well, less stealthily. The game provides loads of options to players who prefer to keep it on the down low. For example, the shadow mechanic is central to Sam's chances to ghost missions. While some areas are more well lit than others, this can be counteracted by shooting light sources, or turning off power generators, or simply flipping light switches. Believe it or not, ambient sound also plays a role in Sam's chances of remaining undetected. Noisy spaces give Sam a lot more wiggle room to do things like walking faster or taking down enemies without being hurt by patrols. This is important to keep in mind as Chaos Fury enemies are deadlier and more vigilant than ever. Guards notice doors, windows, and even computers and security systems that have been messed with. The game has a lot of subtle nuances, which makes careful preparation and full awareness of Sam's arsenal of gadgets and tricks all the more important. For instance, Sam can cut certain materials like this tent here and open up a new path. Remember when I recommended shooting light sources to create dark areas? Well, there is a better way. Sam's iconic 5.7 SC pistol returns, but with a new feature called Optically Channeled Potentiator. When fired at certain electronics, the OCP temporarily disables them. Sam can use the OCP to disable light sources, security cameras, computers, lasers, and so on and so forth. Using it draws attention, but unlike, say, shooting bullets, it only slightly annoys enemies rather than alerting them. The catch is that it can be pretty hard to aim, and if Sam misses, he must wait for the OCP to recharge and become usable again. Its cooldown also prevents the gadget from being overpowered and forces players to think tactically before using it. In addition, cameras are reinforced with bulletproof casings, and some of them even have infrared lights, meaning that they can spot Sam in the dark. So the OCP is pretty much your only reliable way of dealing with cameras short of disabling them from a security terminal. There's one cool OCP related set piece early in the game which has Sam rappelling from a bank sky window down in the middle of a laser protected cubicle. There, Sam finds himself flanked by lasers. I got out of this conundrum by pulling out my OCP and disabling the lasers. Now, I say OCP related set piece simply because that was the solution I chose. A simpler way to deal with this issue would have been to turn the lasers off by hacking one of the computers from the cubicle remotely with one of Sam's devices. But you know me, your boy Mark ain't that smart. Sam's assault rifle makes a glorious return, featuring a multitude of attachments. It's equipped with a launcher that fires a multitude of non-lethal weaponry, such as sticky shockers to knock out guards, airfoil rounds to stun them, and gas grenades to, well, put them to sleep. In addition, the launcher can fire sticky cameras. These can make a clicking sound that attracts enemies to their position and emit a non-lethal gas that renders all enemies in the vicinity unconscious. Keep in mind that the gas's area of effect can be a little tricky to judge from certain angles. It takes a little trial and error to get used to it. To be fair, I haven't used sticky cameras that much in Chaos Fury because the optic cable alone met all my scouting ahead needs. The optic cable is a device used to peek under doors. You can switch between normal, night and thermal vision when using it, which is a nice quality of life feature. A newly introduced gadget is Sam's combat knife. There's a variety of ways to use it. Sam can use his knife to threaten enemies during interrogation, kill guards, or disable generators and stuff. Fun fact, Chaos Fury was the first Splinter Cell game to receive an M rating because it featured the option to kill enemies during interrogation, instead of merely knocking them out. Now, interrogations tie into another core mechanic, which is intelligence gathering. Through interrogation, Sam can obtain valuable pieces of intel such as door codes, supply stashes, how heavily or sparsely guarded certain areas are, locations of power generators, and even alternative ways to access rooms. One guard was kind enough to reveal, under duress of course, that a certain room could be accessed through what else? A vent. Occasionally, you'll have to smash the guard's face into a retinal scanner to unlock a door, which never gets old. By far, my favorite part of the whole interrogation mechanic is Sam's banter, which is one-sided for obvious reasons. He is so fucking funny. While guards are pissing and shitting their pants out of fear at the tactical gear-clad shadow operative breathing in their ears, for Sam it's just another day at the office. So he may as well have some fun. Now you might be wondering why I haven't talked about Sam's athletic hijinks. The reason is that I never felt the need for them. Aside from split jumping exactly once later in the game, I relied mostly on Sam's gadgets. No need for any Cirque du Sam shenanigans. Another way through which Chaos Fury addressed the lack of replay value was by adding secondary objectives. Narratively, most of them are packaged as favors Sam does for his coworkers. What's cool is that some of these secondary objectives carry into subsequent missions. For example, if Sam fails to uncover the identity of a certain target during a specific mission, it will be listed as a main objective in his next assignment. Side objectives also contribute to your final mission score, along with other criteria such as the number of bodies discovered and so on. In Bank, I got a lore score because while I did make the heist look like a robbery, I refused to place the blame on an innocent by making it seem like an inside job. In Seoul, you can choose to go against your orders and save 2 unconscious pilots who had crash landed smack in the middle of a war zone. You're not rewarded for this, but you do get this great line.
You don't even exist, Fisher. You can't get a medal for this.
Medals don't help me sleep at night, Lambert.
Also worth noting is that Chaos Fury comes with some baller mission premises and gimmicks. While Bank is the highlight of the game, it's not the only mission boasting clever design. This place has Sam retrieving the contents of a briefcase remotely via a hacking device. In Bathhouse, you come across 2 heavily guarded steam bath areas. You can knock out guards one by one, or steam up the rooms, turn on thermal vision, and sneak past the enemy guards. My only wish is that Chaos Fury relied more on these one-off mission gimmicks, but that's okay. I'd take one tightly designed bank over 5 mediocre missions any time of the week. Now you might remember when I said that Chaos Fury is an almost perfect game, so I guess it's time to explain what I meant by that. So basically the game suffers a significant quality dip in the third act. Towards the end of Bathhouse, there's one egregious scripted set piece where Sam has to sneak his way through 2 groups engaged in a firefight. It's so out of place that it nearly ruins what is an otherwise great piece of stealth mission design. And then there's Seoul. Look, while dropping Sam into a war zone is a good idea on paper, the mission itself is very linear and gimmicky. Even worse, the game throws 2 tanks in the second part of the mission. And by second part of the mission, I don't mean after the halfway point, I mean literally part 2. As in, the devs decided to split the mission in 2 parts for some goddamn reason. Anyways, tanks. Yeah, so I died so many times because of these pieces of shit. The tanks are notoriously RNG. I couldn't for the life of me tell you how I managed to advance past them. I I just did. Technically, you have to wait for the turret to move away from your direction and then make a run for it, but that obviously doesn't always work. Other than that, Chaos Fury is an incredible game that I highly recommend if you're interested in stealth games. I am happy this game exists and sad that we're probably never going to see another Splinter Cell in this vein, as the Ubisoft of today is a fundamentally different company than it was 18 years ago. So go play it, snap necks, throw sticky cameras, grab unassuming NPCs from behind and watch as Sam bombards them with dad jokes, because Chaos Fury is the best we're ever gonna get. Thanks for watching. As always, a huge thank you to my wonderful patrons whose generosity makes these videos possible. I'll see you next time.